你好，我是吴易安 and welcome to 易安中文 Easy Chinese 中文语法 Chinese grammar. Verbs, the present tense. Verbs are words that show an action. In English, verbs include to run, to eat, and to sleep. In Chinese, verbs include 跑步, 吃, 睡觉. In English, each verb has many different forms. For example, the different forms of the verb to eat include to eat, eats, am eating, will be eating, will have eaten, had eaten, ate, may have eaten, might have eaten, etc., etc. In English, the form of the verb changes depending upon whether the action is occurring now, in the future, or in the past. The form will also change depending upon who performs the action, for example, I eat, but he eats, and how many are performing the action, for example, he eats, but they eat. Chinese verbs are much simpler. Chinese verbs have only one basic form, regardless of when the action is performed or who is performing the action. The present tense, for actions occurring now. In English, the present tense of verbs has two forms. The simple present, for example, I drink, and the present continuous, for example, I am drinking. In Chinese, the present tense is similar to the English present tense, but at the same time a little different. The simple present, for example, I drink, and the present continuous, which has two forms. The dynamic, for example, I am drinking, and the static, for example, the picture is hanging. The simple present tense in Chinese is used in much the same way as it is in English, except that it is much simpler. In English, for example, the verb to eat changes form depending upon who's doing the eating. I eat, but he eats. In Chinese, however, the verb 吃, to eat, remains the same regardless of who is doing the eating. Therefore, 我吃, I eat, and 他吃, he eats, have the same form of the verb 吃, to eat. In the table below, you'll see a comparison of English and Chinese verbs. I drink water, but he drinks water. In Chinese, 我喝水, 他喝水, the verb doesn't change. And in the past tense, I drank water. In Chinese, it's still 喝. 我喝了水. We add the le to indicate its past tense, but the verb 喝 remains the same. In Chinese, the present continuous tense has two subtly different forms, the dynamic and the static. The dynamic uses 正在 before the verb, and the static uses the suffix zhi after the verb. 正在 means in the process of or the middle of doing something. So, 我正在挂画. I am hanging pictures. I'm in the middle of hanging pictures. Another example is 他正在打电话. He's telephoning someone right now. Sometimes the 正 is not said. 他在打电话. 这 the continuous static suffix 墙上挂着一幅画. A picture is hanging on the wall. Here, while the hanging is a continuous state, it is a static rather than dynamic action. Other examples of the static form. 门开着呢, the door is open. 她看着我, she is watching me. Reduplication of the verb. When an action takes place for a little while, the verb may be repeated. 我到公园走走. I'm going for a little walk in the park. You could also express this saying 走一走. 我到公园走一走, and it has the same meaning. The negation of Chinese verbs is achieved by placing 不, meaning not, before the verb. For example, 我不吃西餐. I don't eat Western food. There is one exception to this rule, however. The verb 有, to have, is negated with the particle 没, meaning not. 我没有钱. I don't have money. The past negative is also made by using 没有, not have, instead of 不, not. For example, 我没有完成我的工作. I have not finished my work. Any confusion over whether 没有 refers to not have in the present tense or not in the past tense is usually resolved by looking at the context. The passive voice. In the passive voice or construction in English, the object appears earlier in the sentence than the subject, and the subject is preceded by. In passive constructions in Chinese, the subject is prefixed by 被, and the verb moves to the end of the sentence. An example of the passive voice is 我经常被他吓一跳. I am often scared by him. Another example, 我常常被你的话感动. I am often moved by your words. And another example, 我总是被蚊子咬. I am always being bitten by mosquitoes. 让 jiao, ge, and shou are also used in passive constructions with similar effect, but bei is the most commonly used. I hope this helps. Subscribe, like, or leave a comment. 再见.